What happened inside the White House this week was not on any official schedule. It was not announced in advance. It was not part of any formal diplomatic agenda or planned public event. And yet, what unfolded behind those walls in the last 48 hours has spread across the United States with a speed and intensity that no press release could have engineered. Because what the son of the President of the United States asked Shohei Ohtani, quietly, personally, in a moment that nobody inside that building expected to become public, has triggered a conversation that is now echoing from Washington, D.C. all the way to Tokyo. The request was not about baseball. It was not about autographs. It was not about a photo opportunity for a social media post. According to multiple sources with direct knowledge of what transpired, the president's son approached Shohei Ohtani with something far more personal, far more serious, and far more extraordinary than anyone in that room had anticipated. And Ohtani's response, calm, considered, and delivered with the quiet dignity that defines everything he does, set in motion a chain of events that has now captured the attention of the entire nation. America had no idea what was coming. And neither did Japan. To understand the full weight of what happened at the White House, you first have to understand what Shohei Ohtani represents, not just in baseball, but in the broader cultural landscape of the United States in 2025. Ohtani is not simply an athlete anymore. He has not been simply an athlete for quite some time. He exists in a category that the sports world creates perhaps once in a generation, a figure whose influence extends so far beyond the boundaries of his sport that presidents take meetings with him, global brands restructure their entire marketing strategies around him, and children in countries that barely follow baseball know his name and recognize his face. When the Los Angeles Dodgers visited the White House as part of the traditional championship celebration, the event was expected to follow the familiar script. Handshakes. Photographs. A few rehearsed remarks from both sides. The kind of ceremonial occasion that fills an afternoon without producing anything genuinely surprising. According to multiple sources present at the event, that is precisely what most people in attendance were expecting. What nobody was expecting was what happened after the formal portion of the visit concluded. According to multiple inside sources with direct knowledge of the encounter, the president's son approached Ohtani privately during the informal period following the official ceremony. The approach itself was notable, deliberate, respectful, and carried out with a seriousness of purpose that immediately distinguished it from the casual interactions that typically fill these post-ceremony moments. According to those present, the president's son had clearly thought carefully about what he wanted to say before he said it. The request he made to Ohtani was extraordinary in its simplicity and its ambition simultaneously. According to multiple sources, the president's son asked Ohtani directly whether he would be willing to take him on as something that he himself described using a Japanese term that those present had never heard spoken in that building before. He asked Ohtani for a traditional Japanese-style apprenticeship. The room, according to those who witnessed the exchange, went very quiet very quickly. This was not a casual ask. In Japanese culture, the concept of apprenticeship carries a weight and a seriousness that goes far beyond what the English word typically conveys. It is not simply about learning a skill. It is about submitting yourself completely to the guidance of a master. It is about discipline, humility, and a total willingness to set aside your own ego in pursuit of genuine understanding. It is one of the most serious requests one person can make of another in Japanese tradition. And the president's son, according to those present, had done enough research to understand exactly what he was asking. That Ohtani understood the full weight of the request was immediately apparent to everyone watching. According to sources present, he did not respond immediately. He stood still for a moment. He looked directly at the president's son with an expression that those present described as something between surprise and deep respect. And then, quietly and carefully, he began to speak. What Ohtani said in that moment has not been fully disclosed. According to multiple sources, the conversation that followed was private enough that those nearby instinctively created space for the two of them without being asked. But what has been confirmed by multiple individuals with knowledge of the exchange is that Ohtani did not dismiss the request. He did not deflect with polite but empty words the way that public figures so often do when confronted with unexpected personal appeals in formal settings. Instead, according to those sources, Ohtani engaged with the request genuinely. He asked questions. He listened carefully to the answers. And by the time the conversation concluded, something had been agreed upon that nobody in that building had walked in expecting to happen. The son of the President of the United States would be spending time with Shohei Ohtani in a structured, intentional arrangement that both parties had agreed to describe, at least privately, using the framework of a traditional Japanese apprenticeship. When that information began to circulate beyond the walls of the White House, the reaction was immediate and overwhelming. The story broke quietly at first. A single source mentioned it to a journalist covering the White House visit. That journalist mentioned it to an editor. Within hours, the information had traveled far enough that multiple outlets were making calls trying to confirm what they were hearing. And when confirmation came, carefully worded, partial, but unmistakable in its essential accuracy, the response from the American public was unlike anything that a story involving a baseball player had produced in recent memory. Because this story is not really about baseball. It is about something that Americans have been quietly hungry for without fully knowing how to articulate it. It is about discipline. About mentorship. About the idea that there are ways of developing character and capability that the modern world has largely abandoned, and that someone, somewhere, is still taking those ways seriously enough to seek them out deliberately. The concept of a traditional Japanese apprenticeship landed in American public discourse with a force that surprised even those who had watched Ohtani's cultural influence grow steadily over the past several years. Social media did not simply react to the story. It consumed it. Discussions erupted across every platform about what a Japanese-style apprenticeship actually means, what it demands from the person seeking it, and what it reveals about the character of someone willing to pursue it. For many Americans, the image of the president's son approaching Ohtani with this specific request, in this specific setting, using this specific cultural framework, represented something they struggled to fully articulate but immediately felt the significance of. It was a gesture of genuine humility from someone who had every reason to rely on the privilege of his position rather than the sincerity of his request. Inside the Japanese-American community, the reaction carried additional layers of meaning. According to multiple sources familiar with responses from community leaders and cultural organizations, the story generated a level of emotional resonance that went far beyond the typical response to a celebrity news item. Ohtani has always been a source of enormous pride within the Japanese-American community, not simply for his athletic achievements, but for the manner in which he carries himself in a country that is not his own. The fact that the son of the American president would approach him with a request rooted in Japanese cultural tradition, and that Ohtani would receive that request with the seriousness and dignity it deserved, struck many within that community as genuinely historic. Several prominent voices within Japanese-American cultural organizations have already released statements describing the exchange as a meaningful moment of cross-cultural respect at the highest levels of American public life. According to multiple sources, those statements have been circulating widely within the community and have generated significant emotional responses from people who have spent years watching Ohtani navigate the intersection of Japanese and American culture with remarkable grace. For Ohtani himself, this development represents yet another dimension of a public life that has already exceeded every reasonable expectation. He arrived in the United States as a baseball player. An extraordinary one, perhaps the most extraordinary the sport has ever seen. But baseball, it has become increasingly clear, is simply the platform from which Ohtani's actual impact on American culture is being built. According to those close to him, Ohtani approached the agreement with the president's son with the same meticulous seriousness he brings to every aspect of his preparation. This is not a public relations exercise for him. It is not a favor granted to a powerful family because refusing would have been awkward. According to multiple sources familiar with his thinking, Ohtani agreed because he genuinely believed the request was sincere, and because sincerity, in his experience and in his cultural tradition, is the one quality that deserves to be honored above all others. The structure of what has been agreed upon, according to sources familiar with the arrangement, reflects authentic Japanese apprenticeship principles. It will involve discipline. It will involve repetition. It will involve the deliberate setting aside of status and expectation in favor of genuine learning. And it will be conducted, according to those sources, with a privacy and seriousness that both parties consider essential to its integrity. America is watching this story unfold with a fascination that crosses every demographic and political boundary. Because what Shohei Ohtani and the son of the president have set in motion is not simply a feel-good human interest story. It is a quiet but powerful statement about what genuine respect between cultures looks like when it moves beyond speeches and ceremonies and becomes something real, personal, and demanding. The White House has hosted countless extraordinary moments across its long history. But very few of those moments began with a young man approaching one of the world's greatest athletes and asking, with complete sincerity and genuine humility, to be taught. Japan is watching. America is stirring. And Shohei Ohtani, as he has always done, is simply preparing to show someone what true discipline looks like. The baseball world is watching. And after this week, the world beyond baseball is watching too.